So I'd like to introduce Kirsten Borden. She currently works as inside sales with Exis, a global provider of printing plates, plate making equipment, and sleeves and adapters. She graduated from Clemson University in 2018 with a bachelor's degree in graphic communications. She's been working in the industry for over 5 years and got her start with Accredo Packaging. She's been a member of the Women of Flexo Steering Committee for over a year and has recently started her role as co-chair to the Recruitment and Engagement Subcommittee. All right, Kirsten, take it away.
All right, here we go. All right, thank you, Jenny. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am very excited to talk to you all about this topic of imposter syndrome. I had the opportunity to give this presentation this past February at our Women of Flexo conference, and I'm really excited that I get the chance to do this again and share this information with more people. And hopefully you can all get something from this today. I do want to first start off by stating that I am not a professional. I'm not a registered psychologist, and that all of this information and this presentation was gathered by research and collected from multiple psychology websites, studies, and different articles. And I actually have my sources listed at the end. So if you're interested in learning anything more and looking more into that, we're happy to share that information with you at the end. But all right, so let's get started. I first kind of wanted to talk about why I decided to create a presentation on imposter syndrome. I don't know if everyone knows this, but we, through Women of Flexo, we keep a list of different topics that a lot of you have voted on or submitted in different, we've sent out, sorry, you guys have all shared different topics that you'd like to hear for future webinars or conferences. And I went through the list and I was trying to find something that I felt that I could relate to and truly speak on. And I feel that being newer to the industry and beginning my career, I'm kind of at this phase where I was like, oh, imposter syndrome. I feel like this is something I can relate to and actually have, some actual real life experiences to speak on. And also wanted to learn a little bit more about it as well. So I'm hoping that you all can get something out of this as well. So let's get started. So first of all, what even is imposter syndrome? So we actually put out a poll last week asking people if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome. And one of the options that we had was, what is imposter syndrome? And I think 19% of you asked what it is. And so I think that it's a term that some people may have heard it before. I know I'd heard of it and had certain ideas of what I thought maybe it meant. But as far as an actual definition, we'll get technical here. Imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon is the situation in which highly accomplished, successful individuals paradoxically believe that they are frauds who ultimately will fail and be unmasked as incompetent. Now, this source is from the American Psychological Association Dictionary of Psychology, but I will say that across the board in all of my research, this is pretty on point. Something that I see continually repeated is this idea that people who experience imposter syndrome tend to be very capable and hardworking, accomplished individuals. It's not really people who are, aren't hard workers. It's typically people who actually are, and they have difficulty internalizing that. Two other points that I want to make is, first of all, this is not a clinical diagnosis. This is actually more of an experience that one feels. And another point that I want to make is that it's different for everyone. It's not the same. It's not just one box fits in all. So some of you might experience it continually, consistently. Others might just experience it every once in a while. It might be situational. So it looks different for everyone. These are just 2 data points that I wanted to bring up. So around 25 to 30% of high achievers may suffer from imposter syndrome. So that's kind of a percentage of people that experience it on a regular basis. However, in studies, up to 82% of people have come out and say that they face feelings of imposter syndrome. So, and that's or statistically that they've faced it at a certain point of their life or career. And I just kind of wanted to show that number because I feel like 82 is a fairly high percentage. So I just want to make it clear that no one's alone out there in feeling this way. All right. So for this next slide, I kind of wanted to give a visual. I know that in reading that definition, I personally felt like, well, I don't personally relate to feelings of feeling like a fraud necessarily, but there's other ways that imposter syndrome could present itself. So, maybe some of these sound familiar to you. So this thought of they shouldn't take me too seriously. What do I know? Or I don't know enough to share my opinion or speak up. Or thoughts of what if I fail? And no, don't do it. Don't take on the opportunity. Other thoughts of I won't be able to live up to expectations, and everybody knows it, and I'm just here because I'm lucky. So so I'm just wondering if any of you have ever had some of these feelings in your life. And so these are just some examples of what it might look like to you. All right, so next, I really kind of wanted to break down the who, how, why. So who experiences it and why and how. And I first wanted to start with the origins of imposter syndrome and how it kind of came about. So I was able to find out that imposter phenomenon was coined in 1978 by Georgia State University psychology professor Pauline Clance and psychologist Suzanne Imes in a study of high achieving women. So what these 2 psychologists realized was that women in some of their students in their classes or clients or fellow faculty were having difficulty internalizing or accepting their achievements. And even though there was proof to the contrary, women would just credit their achievements to serendipity or luck or good timing. Maybe they just had good contacts. And a lot of times too, they felt like they were good at appearing more capable than they actually felt. And so that's kind of what triggered these 2 to initiate this study. And it actually is a really interesting study. I do have it on my source page linked at the end. It's an interesting read. And I also think it's really interesting to kind of think about the timing in the 1960s and 70s, the women's movement, and how, and kind of like really thinking about how women maybe felt at that time period in educational settings or in their professional careers. So, but anyway, since then, much research and has been done, and further studies based off this initial study have been done. And it is proven that it's not just women experiencing imposter syndrome, it's also men, it's people of all ages, all genders, it's all professions. So again, it's not really just any specific box or group of people necessarily. So all right, so I'm just going to go through these really quick. Here are some common causes that could potentially, you might be able to trace back and connect as to why you maybe feel imposter syndrome now in your older career, professional life. So, home life could affect you to experience imposter syndrome. It could start as young as, your childhood. potentially if you come from a family who really pushed high achievement and were maybe a little bit harsh and had very high unrealistic expectations. And then also to the opposite effect, maybe you come from a family life that you didn't have that support and you had to work hard to kind of prove yourself later in your life. And so again, home life is a big factor. Social structures, again, gender, race, or age. We have work environment. So, it's kind of interesting to think about how's your working environment? Do they promote toxic competition, or also consider the demographic of the management or people that are getting opportunities within your company and things like that. And then you have societal pressures. And again, that one's fairly common as well. And maybe you want to break down certain stereotypes and have certain expectations based on, again, gender or something like that. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, there are many factors that can contribute to why we experience imposter syndrome. It's probably multiple different reasons. Our minds are, kind of difficult creatures, and it can be maybe challenging for our brains to be able to walk the line between behaviors or feelings that are helpful versus unhealthy. So, all right. So next, I kind of wanted to go through some of the negatives of imposter syndrome and positives. Stay with me there for a minute. First, let's go through some negatives, and some of these might seem fairly obvious, but still just kind of wanted to point out what these feelings could be, how these could be negatively be affecting you. So it could affect performance. So your thoughts could be setting a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe you don't feel good enough to perform to a certain level, and then that could potentially hinder you, or you might not have the motivation to even try to perform to that specific level. It could stifle potential for growth or risk taking. So when people fear failure, they might take themselves out of situations or opportunities that could really grow or elevate their career. Maybe it stops somebody from applying to their dream job or a position that they don't think that they're capable of. Or maybe it could stop someone from negotiating a better salary or title or position within a company. Could be difficult to connect with others. So you could be putting walls up because you're scared of being found out, or found out as being incompetent for some reason. And maybe you have no reason to feel that way, but sometimes we just do. That's imposter syndrome. It could lead to career burnout. So imposter syndrome can be closely related to to perfectionism and this idea of everything needs to be perfect again, or I'll be found out. People will know that I'm not perfect, and that can seem really scary to somebody who's experiencing imposter syndrome. And sometimes when you're chasing perfection, that can lead to burnout and working longer hours, spending longer time on certain projects that trying to perfect something that maybe it's not worth it in the end, and could lead to burnout. It could interfere with mental health and overall functioning. So this one's a little bit more extreme, but it could play into your current anxiety or depression that you might be facing. All right, so I know that all of that sounded pretty negative, pretty bad. So what in the heck could be a positive to imposter syndrome? Well, when we can understand what imposter syndrome is and learn how to identify it and manage it when we are having these experiences, we then have the power to, let's say, flip the script, right? So contrary to what I said before about it stifling potential to growth, you could actually catalyze growth. So, for example, acknowledging that we don't always know everything in every situation, this could really lead to a new learning opportunity. It could be a healthy way to adapt. So it's a very common human experience for us to be uncomfortable in new situations. And that's just something that we're going to face in our careers and in our lives, no matter what. And it's really powerful and a good thing to have the proper tools to manage these feelings of discomfort and how to overcome them. And so again, that learning how to do that can be a positive thing. Fuels high achievement. So it could potentially, when you recognize that you're having these feelings, you could potentially be motivated to overcome these feelings and maybe prove yourself wrong when you hear yourself telling you that you're not good enough and all that. So again, you could again flip the script, change things. And so as we're still talking about positives, let's kind of keep our mind there and start talking about tools that we could use to, again, flip the script and overcome these feelings of imposter syndrome in the future. All right, again, so we're going to go over some tools here. All right, here's our first tip. Recognize the signs. So pay attention to your language choices. So really listen to the way that you are speaking to others, and then also listen to the way that you're speaking to yourself. So when others congratulate you or give you praise, pay attention. And do you tend to deflect? Do you also downplay any compliments do you downplay any of these compliments or achievements? And really stop and think and question, why are you doing this? Take that moment to be self-reflective and figure out where that's coming from. Also, when you hear your inner monologue say things like you're not good enough and everyone knows it and you're going to be found out, and you shouldn't be here, you don't deserve to be here, combat those thoughts with facts. So, come back and, say, I worked really hard to get here. I was given this position because of this achievement that I made, and because I took this step and this step. And my boss believes in me for a reason. And I was given this opportunity because of this. Also combat with compliments. So again, come back and say, I'm really proud of this achievement. I worked really hard and I'm really happy with how this result came out. And then, so really the important thing here is to try and separate the negative thoughts from yourself. That's kind of the key thing here. And one tool that kind of came up in a lot of my research to help you separate these negative thoughts from yourself is to actually make those negative thoughts, create a persona for them, make them somebody else. So again, when you hear that negative speak or that negative talk and they come in saying, you're not good enough, you can maybe catch that and then recognize that, like, oh wait, that's Betty. There's Betty at it again. She's being mean. She's saying these mean things to me. And at that point, when it's not you and it's separated from you and it's somebody else, you can then more easily kind of discredit them or challenge them and come back and and come back and challenge, like I said, challenge them. So for example, I'll personally go out there and say what name I decided to give mine, because this has actually been a helpful tool for me. I've been able to catch myself in these situations. I named mine Miranda, after Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but whenever I hear those negative thoughts come in, I can put it into that Meryl Streep voice and kind of give her a face and identify her and say, oh, there's Miranda, and there she is just being mean again, and I can just kind of laugh her off and just, again, it's completely separate her from me, and it's easier to kind of stand up for yourself against somebody else versus when it's yourself. All right, here's our second tool that we can go into. Open up to others. So this is a good option when you don't really trust yourself and you don't really trust your own facts. So you can enlist in others for their facts, and they can open up and give you their thoughts and opinions on you and your accomplishments. So like I said, you want to enlist in others for facts, but you want to be strategic with who you choose to enlist in. You could potentially choose somebody outside of your professional circle and that you trust. And when you open up to them, they might be able to give you a broader idea of what they think of you, again, from a broader level of your accomplishments and your values and your strengths. But also in your career circle, it's important to have somebody as well, or in your professional circle. So a lot of recommendations in my research is to share your experience with a mentor or trusted individual. So so it can be good to find a mentor, whether that's somebody in your company, somebody in your industry, or just somebody in the professional world that you look up to. They also recommend to, go to maybe your direct manager if that's somebody that, again, you feel comfortable and that you could trust them with. And when you can open up to these individuals, they could potentially help you understand your strengths and help you work through certain challenges on a professional level or in more specific situations to your industry and your actual role. And then also here, connect in similar empowering spaces or communities. So if you're kind of part of an underrepresented group or identity, it could be good to find a similar community that you can reach out to, and together you can kind of find support and validation and empathy over shared experiences. For example, we really hope that Women of Flexo is just that for other women in the industry. We really want to be that space for other women, and we try to create opportunities through our networking events, and through we have a mentorship program. And so that's just an example, and hopefully we can be there for other women, but there's also, that's just an example of what some of these communities or spaces can look like. All right, so track and celebrate your successes. So what can be difficult for people who feel like a fraud is for them to grasp how much of a role that they actually play in their success. And they might credit their success to luck or to somebody else's hard work, when in reality, it was really their work, their knowledge, and it was their preparation that got them, to where they are. So it's really important to, my screen is in front of my slide. So it's really important to reflect on your efforts and really be able to understand the work and the steps that you took to get to where you are. It's also important to take time to applaud yourself. So if someone congratulates you, don't move on too fast. Take the time to applaud yourself and give yourself that credit, and applaud yourself for the big wins and the small wins. It doesn't really matter the size. It could be anything from, making a sale. Maybe you had a really good client interaction. Maybe you just solved a problem at work, or maybe even just set a small goal for yourself and you and you were able to succeed in that goal, again, celebrate that. And really, when you take time to do that, and again, reflect on your efforts, it can help you internalize your success. Also, another tip that people recommend is to track your wins. And so actually write out your wins in a physical document, whether that's, digital or just a piece of paper, but having an actual concrete reminder that you can go back and reference can be really helpful. All right, so next tip, say yes to new opportunities. So sometimes it can be hard to say yes to everything, especially when you are feeling stressed or spread thin. But all too often, people with imposter syndrome can miss out on some career-changing opportunities just because they're afraid of doing a bad job, and that's really shouldn't be a reason to or not feeling like you could do a good job, or not feeling like you know everything in that exact moment really isn't a reason to hold yourself back from opportunities. So again, don't let your inner imposter syndrome turn down game-changing opportunities. There's this quote, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but basically it's this idea of when opportunities are presented, say yes, then learn how to do it later. So again, just because you don't know everything doesn't mean you can't learn. And so, sometimes taking on the challenge before you're ready, or you have all the facts or information in front of you to do a good job, you'll figure it out as you go. And so I really like this idea of say yes and then learn how to do it. I think that it sets you up for taking on new challenges and learning new things. And also, it's important to entrust in others for help and advice. So even though we may be afraid to admit to not knowing something, it's important to it's so important to reach out and kind of get over that hump. And you have to figure it out somehow. You have to learn the lesson in some way. And when you entrust in others, you can maybe learn from their mistakes, and maybe they have extra tidbits or stories that they can share with you. So it's really important to again, just open up and place your trust with somebody else to learn new things. We all don't know everything. You have to learn somehow. Okay, so now we have let go of perfectionism. Again, like I said in the other slide, perfectionism can be closely related to imposter syndrome in some aspects. And so it's really important to recognize when good is good enough. And so perfectionism, again, it can be difficult to be perfect in every scenario, in every situation, and sometimes it's just not possible. And so we have to be able to understand that when it's not possible, and we have to also understand when it hinders us in other ways. So maybe your self expectations are realistic or unrealistic, or helpful or hurtful. Sometimes to get a job done, we have time restraints, and really fighting to be perfect or to make this presentation or something perfect. You could hinder yourself in other ways, focusing too much on everything going right and perfect, and it might not turn out that way. So we got to let go of perfectionism. That's a big one. All right, so my final tip that I have for you today is to embrace the feeling. And my screen's in black, but okay. Sorry, my screen is in my way. I can't read my screen. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So embrace the feeling and use it. So recognize that you may not be able to get rid of it completely. So again, imposter syndrome is something that you might experience throughout your whole life. There's not an easy fix. It's not something that will just go away. But again, like we just went over some tools to help you kind of navigate it and manage difficult situations. And hopefully some of these tools can help you be motivated. And like I said, find a way to flip that script from negative to positive. All right, checking on how I'm doing on time. Okay. So this is going to be my final slide. And how can we help support others? So I realize I've been talking a lot, and some of you on this call might be thinking, that you can't really relate to some of these feelings and that it's something that you don't really experience often, or maybe you're at a point in your career where you feel like you've overcome feelings of imposter syndrome, or maybe you've just never even had to experience or worry about it, which is great. But there's a chance that maybe there's someone in your life or in your work environment that is. It could be a team member, a new colleague, a mentee, family member, or friend. And so it's you could be, again, a helpful friend or family member, um, that you can help work through or help provide tools for them to overcome these situations. But also, as a manager or leader over a team or over your company, it's important to be able to lead your team members whenever they are having these feelings. So that way they can perform to their best abilities, for themselves and for the team. So ultimately, we can just utilize the same skills that we have reviewed today so far. So, really, you can try to catch them in that modesty ploy when you're having conversations with them. Kind of do the same thing. Try to catch them if you pay them a compliment. Are they downplaying or deflecting, and why? And ask them why. Remind them of their achievements. Celebrate their wins. Compliment their hard work, or even just recognize their hard work. You can share your knowledge or your advice, and then consider your work environment. And I mentioned this earlier. And again, just especially as a manager or lead in your company, just pay attention to whether or not your environment is promoting toxic competition and rewarding certain kind of behaviors over others. And again, pay attention to the demographic of those that are getting rewarded or advancements into management. So, yeah. All right. So I'm going to move on here. So, like I said before, these are some of my sources that I used for my research. And if anyone's interested in, looking more into this, we're happy. You can reach out to Women of Flexo, reach out to me on my LinkedIn page, and we're happy to share some of these sources with you if you want to dive in a little bit deeper. And then, all right. So Jenny, you can tell me how I'm doing on time, but we do have, we like to end with some questions and open discussion. I will say, again, I'm not a professional, but I can try my best to answer questions. But we also would like to, open up the floor for anybody who wants to share any of their experiences, or if they have any tips that I didn't mention today, feel free to jump in and add, anything to this discussion. We're happy to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Kirsten. Great job. I'm unsure if everybody could just jump in, but if they want to ask a question or maybe talk about something, they put the Q&A as well too. But I do know that the one thing that you started off with, you talked about imposter syndrome is situational. And I think that's so key, because thinking throughout my career and stuff as well too, if I'm going into a brand new customer to try to get their business, that's a whole different mindset than if I'm hanging out with the girls having a glass of wine, right? So I'm more comfortable with the girls with a glass of wine otherwise, but I do think that every day we kind of, I know I do, I face it every day, because what kind of meetings do I have? Do I have to dress up, or can I dress down, or can I wear casual, or what? Just even how we dress and stuff and how we perform. I think how we dress also helps me perform better as well. I feel more like a professional if I'm dressed like a professional, right? But knowing your stuff and knowing that you know your stuff is key, and you just got to keep telling yourself and make sure that what's your girl's name that you kick out? Mine would be Joni.
Oh yeah, mine's Miranda Priestley.
Tell her to go take a nap or something, or go take a break. But no, appreciate you doing the presentation today. Did a great job. I hope everybody got something out of it.